What's up, YouTube? So it's time for another build diary, and this one's going to be a little bit different because I'm not going to talk about stuff inside the truck. Before I get into the very long subject, which is going to be broken up about insulation and walls and basically just how I did mine, not how you should do it, I don't consider myself a master builder. If you want a master builder or people who are really good at it, I suggest you look at Navigation Nowhere or you look at Schooliana. I am not an expert by any means. I have also just gathered content from the internet and done the best I can with the skill set that I have, and tried to educate myself as much as possible on the things I want to do to really try to figure out if I can do them. So one thing I have kind of skipped over, and it happened in parts, happened on the outside of the truck. Now, I haven't done much to the outside of this truck. It's still basically the same little bummy white box truck that I purchased. And honestly, the outside of the truck is a little bit ugly. There's a part of me that wishes a couple of little things were better. But honestly, a lot of them are aesthetic. They have nothing to do with the function of the truck, how it works. You know, basically any of those things. Any of those things that are important to actually moving is fine. Those things were checked right away. But as far as like body things, like you can still kind of see the ghost of the word Sears on the side of the truck, as well as some other lettering that I took some time to get rid of. I started the project while I was hanging out, of getting rid of some of the lettering while I was hanging out with my friend Cora, and at this point I have it all off, and I basically stole the method from Chrome, where he bought one of these erasers, because I'd seen people take lettering off of school buses with like a heat gun, and I was like, oh my god, am I gonna have to buy a heat gun and all this other stuff? And then I saw Chrome use this eraser thing, and I was like, ooh, what's that, for the ambulance that he bought. It still had some lettering that he wanted to get off. And I was like, ooh, well, that's cool. And so I went and bought one of those, put it on my drill, and one day while I was hanging out with my friend Cora while she was working on her van, I started the process of getting the lettering off the side of the truck. But I haven't done much. I had some holes to patch in the front, and then I kind of overdid it with repair tape on top of that, which is why the front of the top corners of the truck look so ugly. It's basically if you took a large bandage and put it on a small cut. There was something that needed to be taken care of that I had taken care of, but also I kind of overdid it with the repair tape on top of that. You know, like I said, the outside of this truck is arguably ugly. Like, one of the things I'm not looking forward to as I try to get back into traveling is shooting the outside of the truck. And the one thing I can say about the outside of the van, even though it was smaller and therefore had more inconveniences on the inside, like both of my vans, on the outside, like the Chevy van was the most aesthetically pleasing van that I had. I'm not surprised about the channel growth while I had the Chevy van. But while it was aesthetically pleasing, physically, I needed something else. And so I can't value aesthetics over other things that are important to living comfortably. And so I have this box truck, which on the outside isn't the prettiest thing in the world. All that being said, one of the great things about this box truck, and one of the hard things, is how high it sits. I don't have any wheel wells. This is not true for all box trucks. There are plenty of box trucks where the box kind of cuts into the wheels. It sits a little bit lower, especially like those little 10-foot boxes that you'd get from U-Haul. You can see on the side there is a slight wheel well depending on the size of the truck. I have none. I have zero. Just like a flatbed on a pickup truck, the bottom of my box is completely on top of my wheels. That's also not true of all flatbeds, but usually a flatbed is literally flat and on top of, in a pickup truck, on top of the wheels on the back, and basically my floor is at that same level. Now the thing about a flatbed pickup truck is it doesn't have a box on top of it, and so since I have an 8x12 box on top of that completely flat floor, I sit very high. And I sit high enough that I knew what I wanted to add to my truck as soon as I bought it was underbody storage boxes. Now, a lot of people had never heard of these boxes. There were, when I mentioned this in a live stream, there were people all over the place like, it's gonna, it's gonna ruin your clearance to the ground. Can you do that? There was a lot of panic over me talking about adding these underbody toolboxes. One, because I don't think people realize how high this box sits. Like, before I installed the toolboxes, I could literally physically sit Indian style underneath this box. Now, I am not that tall. I am 5 foot 4 inches tall. I'm not that tall, and most of my limbs are also short. Like, my arms are short, my legs are short, my torso is short. Like there's no like sometimes people are a certain height and it's all legs, or like they have very long arms. I have no long anything. Everything on me is proportionally shortish to my height, and I could sit Indian style. Is that like an offensive term now? I could sit cross-legged underneath my box. Let us be as socially aware as we can. And so, like, I was not worried about adding these boxes, as I knew I would still have more ground clearance between the bottom of those boxes and the ground than I had underneath the minivan or the Chevy van. I mean, there was hardly any ground clearance underneath the Chevy van because it had those little step things on the side of the van. Like I said, the most aesthetically pleasing van, but I honestly did not gain a lot of ground clearance going from the minivan to the Chevy Express van. And the minivan, it had no clearance. It was very close to the ground. So I've never had a vehicle with significantly high clearance underneath before this one, and it had all the extra space I needed to add these underbody toolboxes. But before we get too much further into the build content, I would like to talk about this video sponsor, Jackery. Now, honestly, everything I've been doing in this build has been easier because I have a Jackery. I have this Jackery 300, and I also have my Jackery 1500, which is the reason you can see me right now. The reason there's light on me right now is my Jackery 1500, which is over there in the corner, hooked to most of my electrics that are running in this truck right now. But when I need to do things like edit, I love this thing because it's very portable and very easy. Not only do I grab it when I'm editing, if I want to make something and I just need power right where I'm working, this is the thing I grab. When I want to charge the cell phone, the batteries for my little camera here, this is one of my little action cameras, which I set up a lot just to capture me when I'm just working around and get a wide shot. When I want to charge these batteries, I grab this little Jackery because it's portable. It's so easy to pick up. And a lot of times, again, we're always pursuing these large power stations, and these little ones are just the greatest thing, especially if you just leave it charged, put it in the corner, and like when you have like non-major things where you need portable power, a little Jackery 300 or a 240 or one of the smaller power stations is going to take you really far. So yes, we're all interested in the big power stations and possible replacements for like our house battery. I mean, my Jackery 1500 is my house battery right now, but for those simple little things, I still recommend this or the Jackery 240. So you have the Jackery 300, which just has a few more modern techs. It has an MPPT charger. And then you also have the Jackery 240, which is a flagship Jackery. And it's much cheaper than it used to be. So you guys, if you're interested in a portable power station that's really easy to carry around, something you can have in addition to, not as a replacement for your house battery, Jackery's just been a really loyal machine. Like, I have put this to the test. It has gone on walks with me when I was using my drone. It's traveled with me, you know, on trips. It's fallen, it's been knocked over, and it has worked and persevered through all of that. So I really do, like, this thing is my baby. I completely love this little Jackery 300. I love my 1500 as well as run in the truck, but this It's just so convenient. It's so easy. It does so many things. It has never failed to charge a thing or run a thing I needed it to run, and I just love it. So if you're thinking about Jackery as sort of a partner to a larger van bank system, I really recommend the Jackery 300 or the Jackery 240. I love this thing. All right, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
So I did miss some things as I was recording, installing these boxes, but just so you know, there was a lot of prep work in getting the right hole set for these brackets. It was much more difficult than I thought because these brackets are extremely heavy. Now that is a good thing for what they have to hold, but drilling through metal is not fun. And getting this set the way I wanted to set took a lot more work than I thought it was going to take. Once the brackets were set, I then test fitted the box to make sure it was going to fit in there properly, make sure I didn't have to reset the brackets. Yes, that was a thing one time down the road, and that I was ready for next steps, which required drilling into the metal box. So early into my build, I bought this thing called a step-up bit, and basically it starts small and gets larger, and I found when I was drilling through metal especially and I needed to adjust holes, it really worked great for that. And I have more than gotten my money back for buying this step-up bit. It's just been so useful. So looking back at this footage, even I think this looks super simple because after that I just had to line up holes and bolt everything down. But the thing is, I had to be underneath and on top of this box at the same time to hold the bolt at the bottom and to tighten from the top. And I kept losing the grip on the bottom and having the door open. It was just awkward and it took some time. But looking back on it, much like the first window, the first box was the easiest of all 4 boxes.
I'm feeling really blah today. I busted my own self in the lip. You see the injury? One of the brackets just kind of fell backwards in my face. And luckily this is all it's showing for it. There's Mickey being a cat. Nice and lazy. But I only managed to get one of my boxes attached today, and that's because when I got to the driver's side, there's something I need to work around, and I just could not put my brain into doing that. There's just a couple little complications that's going to cause a few variables along the way, but at least I got one attached. I loaded up all of my tools and everything I think that I need tomorrow. Actually, I might have to roll back over to the storage unit in the morning. There is one thing I forgot from the storage unit. And I'm not that far from it right now. Settled down for the night, though. Mickey's already settled down for the night. You know the crazy thing, though? Around, 9 o'clock, he's just going to be running around here like crazy, poking his head in the window, even though I got the curtain up, and it means it's nighttime. And he'll be like that. He'll be zooming around me for at least an hour or two. And then he'll settle down and go back to sleep. Because that's how it goes.
So these boxes actually aren't cheap. They run from very expensive to a bit cheaper to kind of mid-range. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to afford more than 2. Luckily, my subscribers pitched in when I still had an Amazon wish list, and they bought both boxes, but something I did made it seem like I was still missing a box, and so I actually ended up with 3. When I had 3, I decided it only made sense to get a 4th and put 2 boxes on each side. But the 4th box that I bought ended up being bigger than the other 3. It was actually shorter, but had more depth. And that worked out perfectly for the Baja propane generator I had. So I decided I was just going to modify this box to be able to not only hold the generator, but hopefully run the generator inside of it. So that included putting a vent on the side and a cable pass-through in the back. With all that done, it was time to space and fit it just like I did the first box.
So I basically failed. I didn't even get one box completely in. In fact, it's kind of loosely attached at the moment, enough for me to get out the gate. And so I basically drove out the gate, and I'm actually parked right beside the storage unit place because I'm going to go back in the morning and try to finish this up. But yeah, these boxes are it's just a lot of awkward places that your hand can't fit. And so it's really, really hard trying to get it fully attached. And because this one is going to hold the generator, the one that I did today, I really don't want it like partially attached. So in the morning, I'm going to try to finish up that box and then do the two boxes that go on this side. This is a much harder task than I expected, but like that's everything in a van build. The stuff you think is going to be hard ends up being easy. The stuff you think is going to be easy ends up being hard. And you just never know where you're going to land with the stuff. So this morning I got up, I had a beverage, and then I attacked this. So I officially have 2 boxes in the front. Now this one is pretty much dedicated to tools, and that probably won't change. This one, on the other hand, is of course my generator box. So now I have a place to store the generator. And if we go inside, we have this vent back here for venting the generator, and then that's a cable hatch for the propane hose and the electric to come through and go to where they need to go. So this little project, which was just taking a box and punching a couple holes in it and attaching it to the truck. Sorry, I'm gonna concentrate on closing this. Took a lot more work than I realized, but it's done now, and it was just not safe for me to even drive until I got this really solidly attached, which it is now. So I'm pretty happy with this. Glad this install is over, and I still have 2 more boxes to go, and I do want to knock those out today.
But now that the generator box was complete, the first thing I did was test fit the Baja generator into the box. Now, people who watch this channel know that that generator pretty much just stopped working on me randomly. And so I no longer have it. But at the time, I felt very victorious because it fit, it worked, and it ran right out of the box. So the driver's side of the truck had like some wires and some other specialty things running along the side of it, so I could not use the same brackets that I used on the passenger side. So what I ended up doing is getting a different kind of bracket from Home Depot and attaching that to the top of the truck, and it'll still allow the box to be spaced out enough to sit on this side and be supported. So the brackets only solve support from the back. I still needed to solve support from the front. And so what I decided to do was to get a piece of strip metal. I don't know what they're called. They're like flat metal bars. Flat bars is probably what they're called. And get it the length of the inside of the box from Home Depot. And then basically I had to make sure there was a hole that lined up between the bar, the box, and the underside of the truck, so that there was support inside the box and that everything was attached together. Doesn't really make sense, and I forgot to film a lot of the details, but at the end of the day it worked, even though once again I was only able to do one box. First of all, that's a beautiful truck back there. Second of all, so there we go, box number 3, and all of these boxes have been way harder than I thought they would be, so I'm gonna stop here today. But mostly I'm happy. 3 out of the 4 boxes are attached, installed, and getting stuff that I want to carry in them is great. So I wrapped up for the day feeling almost there and feeling very proud of myself. Soon after, I returned to do that 4th box, which was a lot of rinse and repeat. Probably more rinse and repeat than the other side had been, but still presenting its own challenges. I think one of my biggest problems was just getting to the bolts and screws, especially in situations where I was trying to hold and tighten at the same time. It's one of those, a second person would have been helpful things, but I got it done. And there it was, the 4th and final box. I finally had all the boxes I intended to install installed. And that should have been the end of the story. I should have never had to install another box again. But it wasn't the end of the story. One of the boxes that I worked so hard to install wouldn't survive, and it would lead to a series of events I couldn't have predicted. Alright, we'll continue that story in the next video. Thanks for sticking around for this one. Now it's that time for YouTube business. If you like this video, like it. If you want to subscribe to the channel, subscribe. And special thank you to my Patreon and YouTube membership supporters. We're going to keep it short today.